So crypto influencer by the name of 𝐑𝐞𝐿 made a video talking about what 1,000 HBAR coins will be worth in 2026. He talked about the fact that the cycle is topping and that going ahead and getting a profit about 80 cents to $1 is exactly where we want to be, considering the fact that a lot of you should have entered before. Now, I wanted to give my unique perspective as to what I think 1,000 HBAR coins would be worth in 2026. Maybe a bit of an updated thesis on HBAR, because the one thing that I feel like a lot of crypto content creators fail to mention is that your investment thesis needs to change over time. I made a video very recently talking about a guy called 𝐑𝐞𝐫𝐫𝐚𝐥𝐬. He's the guy that founded a $1.65 billion treasury company for Solana. He said that initially his big bull case, and it's funny because it's my least viewed video here over who even knows how long, even though I think it's a great video. But anyway, he went ahead and said the fact that his original thesis on Solana was that pretty much we are a decentralized NASDAQ. That's going to carry Solana to $100 billion. Now, when Solana hit $100 billion, he said there's no way that if we're expecting a $1 trillion plus Solana, that we could keep and maintain the same thesis that we had before. We have to go ahead and think bigger. And so that's exactly what I want to go ahead and do in this video, share where my thesis is. As someone that has been pouring a lot of time into the HBAR ecosystem, especially, I want to give my unique perspective. I've talked to a lot of founders recently, a lot of people in the ecosystem and abroad. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, I went ahead and made a video 5 days ago about why I put $100,000 into HBAR. Talked about my overarching thesis and how I think HBAR is going to be one of the biggest plays of the cycle. It already kind of has. In fact, we got in at about 4 to 5 cents, and there are a lot of people doing price predictions about that $1 mark. I think $1 clear as day is a psychological price point that a lot of us point to when we're thinking about HBAR, but in my opinion is heavily flawed. If you think about Solana, for example, this is right before we get into the HBAR example. If we think about Solana, we look at a coin that's, it's doing quite well, but considering the fact that it is inflationary, the market cap's actually phenomenal. In fact, Solana hit fresh all-time highs from a market cap standpoint, but from a price perspective, it's still not hitting all-time highs. We still have some ways away, about 23%, before we're hitting fresh all-time highs on Solana. And this is the same story with HBAR. We had a lot of inflation early on with HBAR. HBAR was a highly inflammatory token. And I've got to say that from an investor's perspective, before this guy, and I'll show his face right here, his name is Charles Atkins, I was not the most bullish person on HBAR. I thought that HBAR was fumbling through a generational opportunity. In fact, HBAR early on had a big run, but really it fumbled it during the bear market. Once the new Hedera Foundation took over, these guys have been absolutely slaying it. HBAR has never been in a better position to absolutely dominate from a DeFi perspective. Without the revamp of the Hedera Foundation, if they kept going the way that they were going back in 2022, this coin would not be anywhere near where it is right now. We would probably be down at the 4-cent mark in a dead ecosystem. So it's great to see that HBAR has actually been doing the right moves to get attention and to get mindshare in a market that is so competitive. So where in the world could HBAR go as a result of that? Well, I want to go ahead and just start off by saying that from a market cap standpoint, we are in almost price discovery. We're at $10 billion from a market cap standpoint, $10 billion. We were at $6 billion in 2021. We are substantially higher than we were before. The thesis for an HBAR at $1 has got to be different. It's got to be different from where it was when I first bought into it. When I first bought into it at 5 cents, I made a video on this, and the original thesis was that I am extremely bullish on the fact that institutions are going to be adopting Hedera. Now, I think as a result of this guy right here, Charles Atkins, which you should do your research on this guy. He's phenomenal for the chain and a good pickup. Well, he went ahead and said, you know what? We're going to embrace what HBAR should be, and that's a retail chain. And I thought that was like the craziest thing in the world when I heard about it and when I saw the shift that HBAR is doing. But considering where the ecosystem has been going, It makes a lot of sense. If you look at YouTubers, they don't talk about this stuff. But if you go to Dex Screener right now, you can do this for yourself, and I implore that you do your own research on this. The meme coin space has just been going crazy. It's been going crazy, 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 crazy. And it's not only meme coins, it's NFTs, it's utility coins. I mean, where's Dovu? I can't even find it right now. So Dovu's right here. I mean, they've all been just going crazy right now. Check that out. That's an absolutely insane run in a very short period of time. These coins have been retouching their highs, and these coins are practically dead at some point or another. So clearly this ecosystem is getting a lot of attention right now, and that is wonderful. But something you should know, if we're positioning HBAR as what potentially could be a retail forward chain, which is something I didn't expect to say in 2025, but it does seem like to be the direction of this chain right now, on top of the council stuff, on top of the other stuff. The retail narrative is huge. If you didn't know, about 75% of all assets under management on Bitcoin crypto ETFs right now as we speak are retail. They're all retail traders. Now, yes, institutional share is increasing, but most of ETF news just comes straight from the source. It comes from retail traders. And retail traders have been buying up the heck out of all these coins. They've been buying up the heck out of everything in the HBAR ecosystem. And so what I think HBAR is doing is they're positioning for what they think is going to be the next big crypto meta. They think, one, that stablecoins are going to be a big deal. That's why they keep talking about USDC and they keep talking about tokenized stocks and all that. So they want to be there from the regulatory forward perspective, but they also think that retail is going to have a huge mania in quarter 4 2025. A lot of HBAR ETF inflow will likely be from retail, which I actually agree with. I don't think that's a crazy perspective. I do think assets like XRP are just going to inherently have more volume than an HBAR ETF. But I think considering the fact that the price is significantly lower, that doesn't really matter. That's a great thing. We love that. I want to talk about some of the news that went ahead and hit when it comes to these HBAR ETFs. This is the fresh news. The US SEC postponed its decision on 2 pending cryptocurrency ETFs, one of them being the Grayscale ETF. That's the big one for HBAR. The new deadline is November 12th, 2025. So I think that's around the time that we're going to be getting an HBAR ETF. So if we're looking to long HBAR, that's probably the time you want to go ahead and do it. Because what ended up happening here is the Grayscale folks, this was on the 9th, they went ahead and did an S1 forum for their Grayscale Hedera Trust ETF. Now, I've got to say, that's a big deal because S1s, they're mandatory registrations right before you plan to offer new securities to the public for the first time, or, an initial IPO. You've got to go ahead and do this. So if we're doing an ETF, we need to have this S1. They've got all of the fundamental things you need for an ETF on board. And that's going to be a big thing for HBAR. They also have stuff like RCAX announced pooled tokens. That's cool because we can get BlackRock Money Market Fund and we can get HBAR and some of Aberdeen stuff and some of State Street stuff. You can go ahead and allocate on these pooled tokens. That's a great thing for institutions. It's a great thing for the boomers that don't want to deal with portfolios and they want other people to manage them. I think that's wonderful. And that got announced. That's great. If we have these funds, they're able to make things a heck of a lot easier to build on chain. And something else that people on HBAR don't talk about, which this is beyond me, why they don't talk about this stuff. I've spent too much time on HBAR at this point, I feel like. But Saucer Swap is finally going ahead and announcing their audit of an ERC20 to Hedera token service wrapper. Why is this important? No, it's not an actual wrapper. I know we wanted to just start going off about HBAR. But anyway, ERC20 can finally go ahead and wrap onto the Hedera token service. That's a really big deal. We haven't had that in pretty much forever. I've been saying it. The CCIP upgrade is an absolutely huge deal for HBAR because it allows interoperable assets to enter the chain. It sucks to build on HBAR because most developers are not on HBAR and they don't want to build on HBAR. And so what can they do? They can port over their tech from other chains onto HBAR and not have to do any of the work because they've already done their work on other chains. Yeah, I'm talking about Ethereum mostly. And so CCIP is an absolutely massive deal. It makes it way easier to build on Hedera, and that's allowed a lot of innovation to come here. Now, I want to talk about some of the pros and cons of the Hedera token ecosystem right now. Pros, I'll start you with the good. It's their first DeFi cycle, and runners are catching steam. No doubt about it. Everything in the ecosystem is running now, mostly because it was just so undervalued before. These memes, I believe, are well-funded, and the utility is healthy at the moment. My opinion is that Charles Atkins, he's an absolute legend for the ecosystem. And I think HBAR is finally moving in the right direction. But is it too late? Is it too late? And this is a really hot take, I don't think a lot of people are going to agree with. I don't actually believe, I'm not convinced at all that Q4 of 2025 is going to be the big moment for HBAR. I know it sounds really odd, but given where the ecosystem is right now, I actually think the big time for HBAR is in Q1 of 2026. I believe that after these ETFs have their listings and they're very retail forward, that we're going to have a mania in the HBAR DeFi scene. Everything is setting up for this situation to be possible. Now, when this ends up happening and institutions start to look into it, in Q1 of 2026, we're going to get a lot more infrastructure upgrades. It's going to be that much easier to trade on HBAR. And a lot of institutions are going to begin to put their feet into the HBAR realm. That's going to lead more volume, probably treasury companies with billions of dollars worth of HBAR, and it's going to be the big catalyst that HBAR needs. And now I know this doesn't make any sense because a lot of people are saying that the cycle is going to top out. But even in a scenario where the cycle does top out, there are cryptocurrencies that just run after Bitcoin tops out. Bitcoin's going to top out. We all know that. But once Bitcoin tops out, we still have time for alts to make their big moves. And so if we're going ahead and making price predictions such as, for $1 on HBAR, or maybe like we want $2 on HBAR, all this depends on is how much adoption can HBAR realistically gain? And all of that's going to come down to the ETFs. ETFs are the big moment because every single thing that HBAR is doing right now is setting up for these ETFs to go ahead and bring billions of dollars worth of capital into the HBAR ecosystem. As it stands right now, the infrastructure is still very early on. The tech is still being built, but the attention is more than obvious. And that's why the ecosystem's kind of been running. Now, there are cons to the HBAR ecosystem. I don't want to just say positive things. Now, I don't think liquidity is very high on chain. I also think that there's very low competition. I also think that the chain is very inexperienced and hasn't had a proper run. Because of the fact that this is the first cycle for DeFi on HBAR, we really haven't had the opportunity for these HBAR developers to gain experience on chain. This is really the first time ever that these meme coins, these utility coins, these NFTs have had a major run, a run big enough to actually give proper funding for them to build on chain. That's a big deal. That means that there's a lot of opportunity on chain when it comes to HBAR. It also means that a lot of them don't know what they're doing. and I don't want to sugarcoat this at all because at the end of the day, listen, I'm not sponsored. I can say what I want to say. And I've got big bags on HBAR. They just don't know what they're doing. A lot of these teams have absolutely no idea what they're doing because this is their first time actually having any money to build something, and HBAR is giving them that opportunity. Now, I think that the HBAR team is doing their best in incubating projects that will actually be a net benefit for HBAR. I don't know if they were doing that last year, but this year, I do think that they're actually moving in the right direction, and I'm actually bullish on that. Now, I don't think there's a lot of money on chain. I've got to be honest. Yeah, the prices are going up on everything, but they're not very high. The biggest meme coin is 𝐸. It's at $8 million. That's nothing. That's so low. HBAR as a coin is at, what, $10 billion right now? It's so much higher. And so the level of growth that we're going to see on the HBAR DeFi scene, it's going to be unprecedented. It's going to be so obvious in hindsight. People are going to make ridiculous, filthy amounts of cash on the HBAR DeFi scene. If they actually get it, they buy the winners and they hold them. That's my big thesis here. The thing is that because there is so little volume right now on the HBAR DeFi scene, despite the fact that we're hitting all-time highs, it's just not very fast. There's no competition. There really is only maybe one big wallet, maybe one big trading platform, maybe one big launch pad, right? There's not like 50 different launch pads on Solana that are all trying to do something, so they continue to try to innovate. The one thing that the US learned back in the day about monopolies is that there is no innovation if there is a monopoly. Usually, there's no innovation. We need to have competition. Competition is a very healthy thing for capitalism. And so what I'm hoping here is that as this ecosystem grows in Q4 of 2025, that we're going to get more competitors. I want to see competition. I want to see new projects come over to HBAR and shake things up because that's what's going to make this ecosystem more exciting than ever. To have this big run in Q1 of 2026, we need to have competition. We need this to change. We need experienced on-chain developers to enter the space. And that's only going to happen if HBAR ends up pumping off these HBAR ETF news. So the big flywheel that we're expecting here in 2025, leading into 26, is going to be the fact, and I'm going to lay it out to oversimplify it right now, is the fact that all that's going to happen is a lot of volume is going to come in as a result of these ETFs. We're going to have a big blow off top in Bitcoin that's going to lead to alts just skyrocketing in value. As a result of this happening, treasury companies will be created. HBAR will be a part of that. They're going to have billions of dollars being accumulated on chain. It's going to drive the price of HBAR higher. And then after that, we're going to have an enormous run in DeFi because HBAR has positioned itself to build the infrastructure to have a big run in DeFi. These coins are already running, so clear as day, this is where the chain wants to go. Then after we have this big DeFi run, we're going to have innovation, competition, all these big players come in and just flood the markets at the same time. And that's going to lead to institutional demand. Institutional demand will push the price of HBAR higher. If it happens, we will be seeing a $2 plus HBAR. But if it doesn't happen, we're going to have to come to terms with the fact that a 50 cent to $1 HBAR is going to be our world. It's kind of like if you see different dimensions. That's the best way to put it. If you see different dimensions of what something could be, there's a world where this guy never came over here. If Charles Adkins never came and we still had the same Hedera Foundation, we would probably be at like 5 cents right now. Like we would be all very depressed right now. But thankfully, that is not our world. And there's also a world where Google put everything on chain and we would be at like a $5 HBAR right now. We are in the middle part where HBAR has made some mistakes. And they are in a position to go ahead and have an immense amount of growth, but it's all a what if. And that's the risk to reward that we take as investors. If I'm buying HBAR right now, 25 cents, it's a $10 billion coin. Your upside this cycle reasonably is about $100 billion. I mean, that is like, if all of the cards align for us on HBAR, this is the potential. The potential is $100 billion on HBAR. Now, the likely scenario is somewhere in between. Somewhere between $10 to $100 billion is going to be your peak scenario. Would I hold HBAR into the bear market? I'm talking about once Q2 2026 comes, am I going to be holding HBAR? The answer is yes, but only because I entered HBAR so early on that I can afford to take a healthy amount of profits and still hold a lot of HBAR. I believe that there is going to be sufficient upside inside of the HBAR ecosystem to multiply the amount of HBAR that you have. If you do nothing and you ignore everything that I'm saying right now, which is fine, people have their own different investment thesis and the ways that they do things, which is totally fine. And I agree, you should stick to your own guts. I'm just some random guy yapping on the internet. I could know much less than you. I could know much more than you. It doesn't really matter. A scenario in which HBAR is anywhere between $25 to $50 billion is a great world for us. A great world for us. And this would represent $1 HBAR. And if HBAR went to $1, I'm telling you now, people will become millionaires, gigamillionaires off of the HBAR DeFi ecosystem. So my main upside is going to be hold the coin right now. This is what I'm doing. So not financial advice. You do whatever you want. Hold the coin right now, capture the short-term upside, and then rotate into the DeFi ecosystem as the ETFs are announced, as this big flow comes in. Let's go ahead and look at where HBAR is focusing. And they're focusing 100% on DeFi. And so once we have the big inflows from the ETFs, we're going to have a big run on DeFi. We're going to park our capital into DeFi, and we're going to multiply the amount of HBAR. I'm not going to be putting more than 10 to 20% of my HBAR. And I made videos on this saying that I'm already doing this because I'm actively doing this. I actually do the things that I say, and I show it on video, which is something that I hope everybody does. But yeah, that's going to be the move. And that's the way that I'm going to be able to turn $200,000 worth of HBAR into over $1 million. That's my thesis. The risk reward for me makes sense, and I will be able to take a healthy amount of profit on the way up because of the fact that I am participating in the DeFi ecosystem. So this is kind of like where my brain is at as someone that actually holds the coin and actually talks to developers and actually like puts an effort into making my content and talking to people and actually putting money into the space. So let me know your thoughts. Do you believe I am too conservative? Do you think that I am way too moon boy? Put it in the comments. I'll go ahead and make sure I read them. Stay classy. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And that's all.